friends. So I see there are a few other people on the line, and I don't want to steal the thunder. We want to make sure that we have a chance to talk to our real guests, but I just want to introduce myself, and then Jocelyn and Andrea, you'll take on the show here. My name is Alice Delvecchio. Some of you know, Carrie, I don't know you. Abby, I don't know you, but I teach in the nonprofit management program at Slippery Rock. Just a couple of cheap plugs that Slippery Rock is the only university in Pennsylvania that has an undergraduate nonprofit management program. So when our students graduate, there's nobody else like them, and that's pretty exciting, I think. There are only 27 nonprofit management programs for undergraduates in the whole United States, and no others in Northeastern US. So we're very different because of that. I also would want to mention, and Mary, I haven't had a chance to catch you up, or you either, Emily, but we're working on this big celebration, and I'm going to get you two involved in that somehow. But we are just finished in May of last year. We finished having the 25th year of nonprofit management program at Slippery Rock University, which is a pretty big deal, really. And so we're planning an event called the Season of Service that will start in about the 12th of April, and will culminate with a big event, a virtual, pre-recorded and live event on April 22nd, where we celebrate what about 3,000 people have been able to do over the last 40 years to change the world. So we're really looking forward to that. Our student organization every year does an annual campaign, and we raise money as a student organization for scholarships. I know that Mary got one when you did your internship in St. Lucia. And I think, Emily, you got the Rowetter Scholarship.
Yes.
Small scholarship. So anyway, so our student organization raises that money. And this year, because it's a celebration of 25 years, the goal is to raise $25,000. So we have a $5,000 challenge grant, and now we only have to raise $20,000. So it'll be a fun kind of opportunity for us to meet that goal. And then that means we have scholarships for our students in our major moving forward. So thanks for taking time to be here. We hope that we'll be able to gain some momentum and have students from all across the campus begin to understand what you can do in the nonprofit sector in order to make a difference while making a living. So Andrea and Jocelyn, thank you for hosting this, and I'm going to sit back, relax, and listen.
Hi, everyone. If you haven't already, could you please enter your name, major, email, and whether you are in Slippery Rock today? I believe everyone did, but I don't want to leave anyone out. All right, you can go to the next slide, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Sorry, it's being weird.
No, you're okay.
One second, sorry.
So my husband says that when I teach, I look more like a DJ than a teacher because I'm spinning things and I'm putting things up. So y'all are having that DJ experience. So welcome to my world.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about Student Nonprofit Alliance and exactly who we are and what we do. So as the slide says, Student Nonprofit Alliance is a pre-professional organization for students interested in working in the nonprofit sector. And our mission is to foster an understanding of and appreciation for a deeper commitment to the nonprofit sector. So we, especially this semester, we're putting together a bunch of fun things and reoccurring things like Self-Care Sunday and different things like that. So you can go to the next one. So I am co-leading with Jocelyn. My name is Andrea Altman. I'm a senior integrated marketing communications major. I am the social media marketing chair for SNA. And Jocelyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Jocelyn, and I'm a public relations major, and I'm also a philanthropy and nonprofit major. And I joined SNA this semester, but I've had a lot to do so far. So I've been organizing this series with Kirsten, and I create different promotional material for us.
All right. Emily is from Children's Aid Society in Mercer. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of explain what you do?
You'll need to unmute him.
Embarrassing, but okay. So my name's Emily Palmer. I'm the public relations coordinator at Children's Aid Society of Mercer County. I'll just go ahead and tell you my journey at SRU and how I ended up in the program, and then I'll tell you what I do now. So in 2014, I went to Slippery Rock as an early ed and a special ed major. I was in that for 2 years. And then when I was a sophomore, I started doing field teachings at Mohawk Elementary School. And I just realized that it was not for me whatsoever. But I was still not ready to commit to changing my major, only because I didn't want all the hard work that I had done go to waste. So I had changed my major to I forget what it's called. I think it's called undecided, maybe. And I ended up in Alice's class. Mind you, this was also after I had just gave birth to my son. So I was a jumbled mess. You can ask Alice. When I went to her to talk about the program, I was just sobbing and a mess. But Alice had started talking about this tree and how everything that I did and everything I cared about and basically that I wanted to do all fit under this tree. She was more talking about it to people as it to be a dual major, but I knew that it was what I wanted to do. Like I said, I had my son right when I met Alice, so I did not get the opportunity to join SNA as a full-time member, although I highly recommend it to anyone who asks. I was able to help with things like Eyes Week. I was one of the first series of So You Want to Change the World Day, in which high school students come to the college, and it's a whole thing there, which is amazing. And then one of the first things I ever did was Shoes for Baby Hope. I'm sure some of you have heard about it. Others who haven't, it is basically Alice went on a trip with a bunch of students, and there was this baby who needed a family. He lived in
Kenya.
What'd you say?
We went to Kenya for 2 weeks.
Thank you, Kenya. Yeah, I was going to say Croatia, but and basically it was a fundraiser in which you could donate old shoes, and then we sent them off to this company who gave so much for the old shoes, and then they would send them for people to sell to make money for themselves. So it was this whole line of things, and so many people benefited from it. And that was my very first semester of doing anything with the PNPN program, so that just made me want to go full force in. That following, trying to think, that was in the fall, and then the following winter I went with, I think, 7 people to get my CNP, what I kind of talked about earlier. Not only wasn't it fun and a amazing experience, it was also my first time ever leaving my son, so there was another crying that Alice had to deal with. And then after that, I was just involved in any way that I could. And then the gala came up. So in 2019, I was an MC for the gala, and I actually ended up winning the People's Choice Award for my nonprofit that I wanted to do, which would be an SGA affiliated club on campus, basically for parents who are raising children while they're in college. I'm very proud of that little Grammy Emmy thing. It sits on my shelf in my office, and if anything else, it's an amazing conversation starter. After I graduated in 2019, I was doing my internship at Children's Aid Society. I got really lucky because my instructor there, Liz, she was leaving to go to law school. So there was a position open. I applied for it. The position that I applied for was only part-time. which was not going to be enough for, I have a fresh family, everything like that. But I accepted on just a will of hope that everything was going to work out. And by the end of my first day, they had switched it from a part-time position to a full-time position. So that was super rewarding and super exciting. And ever since August of 2019, I have been the public relations coordinator. I'm a woman of many hats. The main things I do are special events and fundraising, which are my favorite things to do. I love to plan an event. I love everything that goes into it. And my favorite part about it is just seeing how it all comes together in the end. Other than that, I do run all of our social media accounts, which has been a big adjustment for me. I learn as I go with it. I have also been learning recently that Facebook is very hard to work with. I run our website. I do all of our press releases, our media releases. Anytime we do a commercial or a radio ad, or we have an ad in a magazine, I create all of those. What else do I have down here? I do all the public speaking events. So anytime that we are promoting something or recruiting for something, I'll go and do those. Which led me to being, originally I was a rep for the Mercer Chamber of Commerce, and shortly after they asked me to be a board member, so I'm now on the board there. And I also am a rep for Mercer County Young Professionals. I'm also part of something called a Mercer County Resource Team. They're all very similar in the fact that they're about networking and recruiting and just sharing what we do with one another, but they all do reach different audiences. Other than that, I also run the Christmas referral program at Children's Aid Society. Last year, we were able to help Christmas for 968 children. That is definitely the most rewarding part of my job. I am a crazy woman from about October to December, but my husband is very, very working with me. Other than that, I do a lot of donor management. Like I said, recruiting earlier, right now I'm working on a lot of individualized donations just because that seems to be more of a trend now than corporate donations. So yeah, like I said, I'm a woman of many hats. I think you'll learn working in a nonprofit sector that it's easy to take on more than you can chew. But you just got to keep swimming and you'll get there. Is that good?
Thank you. Mary is from the ARC. And Mary, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. So I just want to put out a fair warning that I just got home from work and my dogs are really excited. So I'm hoping that they behave. They're laying under the table now, but they tend to bark. So I'll put myself on mute if that happens and then start from there. So I'm Mary. I do work for the ARC of Butler County. I've been there since the beginning of 2018. I graduated from Slippery Rock in 2016 from the nonprofit management program, and then also the communications program on the public relations track. I think I'm going to follow Emily's lead and kind of just take you from where I started and where I'm at now and how I got here. I started at Slippery Rock undecided, and I think, for a while when I was in high school, I always wanted to be a teacher. Like, I just always had this heart to like help people. And that has just been like the steady thing that I've noticed like throughout my entire life. So starting at Slippery Rock, I was put into a civic engagement class. I'm not sure if that's still a class.
Yep.
But if it is, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. So that was my first time meeting Alice, and she met me when I had no idea what I wanted to do or the path that I wanted to take. And I quickly just got involved with her in her classes in SNA. And from there, I kind of realized I had this niche to tell the story, get that story across for whatever it was. So for SNA, it was when we were having these events or collecting donations or whatever we were doing, I really liked to tell why we were doing that and the story behind it. And from there, I started looking into the communications program. And I think at first I was really interested in the media behind it. And then I realized that that's not really it. Like, I wanted to make that connection from the organization to the public. And in the nonprofit sector, that's really from the organization to either the donors or the supporters or whoever you got that you want to get interested in your cause. So that's kind of where I started at Slippery Rock, and I kind of worked through that. I involved myself in SNA and also Rock Productions, which was the public relations student organization at Slippery Rock back during that time. Trying to think. I'm a little scattered brain, sorry.
Well, so Mary was president of SNA for a couple of years, I think. And we use this tagline, you can make a difference while making a living. And that was Mary's genius. And the logo that we used for that was Mary's genius. And so almost everything we've done is student generated. And if you're around long enough, you kind of see who was the grandmother of that particular piece. And so Mary was our you can make a difference while making a living person. So, yeah.
Thanks, Alice. I think Alice started out saying earlier too that I received a scholarship. That was my junior year, I believe. And the scholarship was to study abroad. But at that point, I had already taken a lot of the classes that I needed, and I didn't really see myself going somewhere and doing the traditional study abroad experience. And I needed a internship at that time too. So I had to make the decision whether I go abroad and study or if I stay around and do an internship. And Alice had this genius idea of why can't I use that scholarship towards internship credit? So I didn't have any connections with, any abroad opportunities where you could really do a scholarship. And Alice introduced me to St. Lucia and Dominic or Chester. So that was really cool. I interned with the Sioux Free Regional Development Foundation. And when I was there, I kind of just went from the ground up and built their communication plan for them, which it took a couple years after for them to actually finally start using what I produced for them. But it was that starting point down there. I think another interesting takeaway from that is when I went down there, they own two, of the largest tourist sites, and they had no idea about cause marketing. And that was something that I wasn't really, that wasn't my niche. That wasn't something that I was even interested in. But once I got down there and I was able to show them what that was, that became one of my interests too, is this whole cause marketing thing. But yeah, so a lot of stuff within 4 years of Alice and SRU. And when I graduated, it took me about a year. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to be, and I knew I wanted to stick around the Slippery Rock, Butler County area. So right after college, I was applying to jobs, and I was still a little lost. I didn't know if I wanted to go into direct service or marketing or fundraising and development. I had all these broad range of transferable skills, but didn't really know which path I wanted to take with that. So I was just applying all over the place. And then finally, I found an opening at the ARC for a development position. And I applied, and 3 interviews later, they hired me. During my interviews, I found out that they never had someone in the development position there. So this was a newly created position, which was, I think, great for me walking into. They didn't really have it planned out, and I was able to just get it in there. And again, what I did down in St. Lucia was build this ground up communication plan. And I've really been able to use that in my job today. So kind of taking a couple steps forward. I wear a lot of hats at the ARC, and my title is Fundraising and Communication. And that really is what I focus on throughout the day-to-day. Donor management. I do a lot of grant research and proposal writing, also producing marketing materials and helping with the special events. But I'm also pulled into some of these other projects like our after-school transition program. I've been working on some of the curriculum for that and vamping that up. And then recently this year, I've been pulled on to the COVID task force, and that has pulled me away from most of the fundraising and marketing that I've been used to. But yeah, it's been interesting.
Great. So I think that you guys have some questions. Is that right? Certainly.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if anyone else had questions for them before we started.
So like,
I do. Sorry. I was just gonna ask where you found the jobs that you applied to, if like networking had a big part of it. Where'd you find them?
So mine came from my hometown. I am a diehard for my hometown, and I had just known about the agency from seeing it, but my friend who went to law school was who mentioned it to me.
But you did it as your internship, right?
I did it was as my internship. I found it as my internship through the database at Slippery Rock. And then once I got into it, I realized who I was working with and things like that.
And did you get hired before? You got hired almost before the internship was over, didn't you?
I had actually had to do a 12-week internship, and I got hired 6 weeks into it. And I got hired because part of the part of the interview for the position was about what was already in place and what I would do moving forward. So I presented them my binder, and I got hired from it.
Your intern management binder, or your
It
binder?
was like my final project binder from my internship.
Mary, how did you find your job?
Yeah, so like I said, my job search process, it wasn't, that easy. You're in your internship and move on from that. I spent a whole year of kind of researching jobs, applying, going into interviews. I knew they were going to bark. So it's funny because Alice, that first year I was out of college, she did a really good job at keeping tabs on me, checking in, giving me leads for jobs. So those relationships that you get with your professors, you want to hold them tight and close because they're going to be the ones, reaching out and giving you leads on jobs. And actually, how I found the job at the ARC was through a website called Nonprofit Talent. And Alice had given me that resource too.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. It's a great resource.
That's great to hear, because I know, again, I'm a non-traditional student and I'm working for not a nonprofit right now. And I'm worried that this semester is going to end. I'm going to graduate and things are just going to go back to normal. I'm just going to continue at my same old job. I'll lose contact with everybody. I won't be able to put any of the great things I've learned into practice. So I'm like dying to get out there and find a job in the field and stay in contact and stay inspired, because everybody here that I'm with inspires me and motivates me to do better and be better and live better. And I don't want to lose that.
So Jackie lived through the Empowered to Serve class in the summer, and Jocelyn's in the class now. So that's a new class that we have, but it was kind of fun to have. Hey, Kayla, you're in the Empowered to Serve class too, right? So that was kind of a new class. So more and more of the people in the program are taking that class too, which I think is a really kind of cool opportunity for people to clarify who they are and their goals and how it all connects. So yeah. Carrie, you had a question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
you're okay. I was just wondering, like, going into a job and like transitioning into like a big girl job, like what kind of word of advice do you have? Just because with everything going on, I feel like it's very stressful looking for jobs and everything right now and not being like prepared.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So you mean, I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question. So you mean basically what advice do we have while you're like looking for a job?
Yeah, just like I know that you guys had more of like a connection for
Gotcha.
looking jobs, but just like any word of advice, like how you would have started the job, like searching process and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Well, the biggest thing that I can say, and I think that this goes not only just for getting a job, but even after you have one, is you cannot be afraid to network. You cannot be afraid to make a connection, or to talk to somebody. I think that that's something that a lot of people who are timid, you have to get over that right away if you really want to get out there and those opportunities to come to you. So I think that would be my biggest thing, is just, don't be afraid to have a conversation with someone. You never know what you're gonna learn from a conversation.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that, Emily. And then just also your confidence, be confident in yourself and own the skills that you have, because you have them and you want to show them off. And I think also just make sure you're asking questions and, just trying to get all the information that you can about what you're going to be doing and be prepared for that.
I think you're also going to find that you know a lot more than you think you do. That's something that I can totally say that I learned when I was at AMI, and that I learned just coming into the position. I was very similar to Mary, as in a lot of that position was kind of built after I got there. So I have mom brain right now. I totally forgot what I was talking about.
But you knew more than you thought.
Oh yes, correct. So even then, when I started, I just have the confidence that you know what you're talking about. You are passing these hard classes, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I would suggest, if you're not at that point yet, an internship is super important. And even like Andrea and Jocelyn work in our office, and Mary was president of SNA, and Kayla has been involved in SNA, and she's doing a full-time internship now. I would suggest that you get involved in as many of those things as possible, because that's a safe place to learn that stuff. So I don't know, Jackie and Emily, do you remember what I say about my dad? And the worst they can do is tell you no. Do you know the rest of that? What does Walt say, Jackie?
I don't remember the rest of it. The worst they can tell you is no.
Yeah, my dad always used to say the worst they can say is no. They can't rip your arms off and they can't eat them. And when I get nervous, like, I don't know why I put that part in there, but when I get nervous, like, oh my gosh, this is so important, what if they tell me no? I just sort of get this mental image and this voice in my head of my dad talking about ripping off people's arms and eating them. And that makes me say, you know what? I'm ready. I'm okay. What's the worst they can do? The worst they can do is tell me no. And so if you're doing work on campus, or the other thing I would suggest, that if you still have time, that you try to take as many classes that have a service learning component in it as possible, because then you're creating products. You're not just taking a test and getting a grade, but you've got something that you can say, I know this, but I can do it also. And if you do that while you're in school, that's a pretty safe environment. So if you make a mistake, ain't nobody gonna kill you, right? And so it's good to make those mistakes while you're in school if you have to, so that when you get into the workplace, you're more comfortable. And the idea that if you make those mistakes, so what? If you make the same mistakes, okay, you got a problem. But just to have the courage to make the mistake and brush off and try again, I think would be the most important thing to do while you're still at the Rock.
Thank you for all the great answers.
Other questions? Or
Does anyone have any other questions for them?
Yeah, I have one actually for Mary. My son is 17 and is one of the things he's interested in going to college for is marketing. Um, what would you have me tell him as to why he should go into marketing?
Hi, John. So I wasn't necessarily into the marketing side of things. It was more the public relations. But I think they can go hand in hand when just talking about that they blend so well with other skills. And I think marketing is a great field to go into, but you need to find that other component that you can kind of drive your marketing passion for. And for me, that was, the nonprofit sector. That's something that I'm passionate about, and that's how I use my PR skills.
Okay, thank you.
So we talk, when students come to me and they're a business major and they're not sure if they want to be business or they're thinking about nonprofit or business, I ask them, do you want, or if they're in marketing, I ask them, do you want to do research and then sell something that makes stockholders profitable and you get a paycheck from that? Or do you want to do something where you sell ideas and you change lives? And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but obviously, John, you know what I think. But I think that's the big question for your son: is does he want to change people's lives, or does he want to sell stuff? And if you want to sell stuff, then a traditional marketing major is great. You're going to learn how to do research. You're going to learn how to create, maybe even go into advertising, that sort of thing. But the skills that you would learn in the business school, although they're transferable to the nonprofit sector, they don't always work in the nonprofit sector. And so to have a balance of understand the culture you're going to be in. So, I mean, I know you worked you managed manufacturing for a long time. So understand that culture is really different than understanding the nonprofit culture. And so when you go to into marketing, decide what kind of culture you'd like to be in and spend a lot of time understanding that culture too.
Yeah, in his case, it's more, do I want to do marketing or do I want to do something else? So that's kind of it's not nonprofit versus for-profit, it's marketing versus these 7,000 other majors that colleges offer nowadays. And it's hard for him to figure out what it is he wants to do.
Well, the good thing is, there's a good and a bad, right? So the truth is that you're probably not going to get to do what you major in for the rest of your life because jobs change so much. So the good news is kind of at some level, it doesn't matter what your major is, because you're probably not going to get to do it for the rest of your life anyways.
I have a question. Okay, I'll go and then Carrie, you could go. So I am an IMC major and I was just wondering what your guys' opinions are. I definitely want to work in the nonprofit sector with that. And so do you think it would be best to dual major or to add it as a minor? And how is that different? Is that necessary? How should I go about that?
I think, Jocelyn, you've made that decision recently, and Emily talked about the tree and all that kind of jazz, but you might want to address that because that's the decision you made, right?
Yeah, I made that decision last semester, so it's still very fresh in my mind. And I think it goes off of what Mary was saying about what are you going to pair marketing, or in our case, integrated marketing with, that will, marketing doesn't, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense by itself. You kind of have to pair it with something else. And so I'm actually a public relations concentration. So what am I going to pair my public relations with, or what can I market to the public, if that makes sense? And I just thought, especially with our communications degree and how it's stacked up, it's really easy. And Alice showed me with this whole tree thing, it's really easy to add a second major into our program. And if you're going to minor, it's kind of worth it to double major.
I can show you the tree if you want me to. You'll have to share the screen with me, Joss. So this looks highly anti-academic, but it may, I mean, it's a shortcut for to help you understand what we're trying to do here. And I tell students that unfortunately, I think it's a good idea, but unfortunately my first language is metaphor. And so to show you a picture sort of makes more sense than, here we go, than just trying to explain to you. I think I can get in here. I don't see how I can share. Oh, there we go. Wait. No, I'm not able to get in here for some reason. Well, okay. So I'll just try to explain. So in most majors, I would say it's like a pine tree. And so that you take everything on the tree all the way up, every little bitty branch, you get to the top, you get a diploma, a star, it's called a diploma. So in the comm department, there's this big list and you take all that stuff and now you get that degree. Ours is more like an apple tree. And so, you know, if you think of an apple tree with multiple branches, one branch is all nonprofit management courses. And so there are 6 of them. And that's the minor, or that's the branch of the major, right? But the other half of the tree is all self-designed. And so let's say, so I say students, you need to either choose to have a functional area or a program area. So let's say that you want your functional area to be management or leadership. So that part of your tree, we would put courses maybe from the management program, from the leadership program, whatever. Or maybe you want those kind of functional areas would be skills that you would develop that you could use in any nonprofit organization. Or you could do it in terms of program focus. And if you do the program focus, then the courses that you put in there would be, let's say, for example, Mary, was yours working with children?
It was.
Yeah, so that part of her tree is all child development and a class on child psychology or a sociology class on the family. And the cool thing about that is that when we're building that part of your tree, we can pull stuff from all over the university to put on there, as long as you have the prereqs and you're allowed to take it as a non-major. So Kayla is doing that right now. Kayla, are you still on here? Yeah, I think so. Did Kayla leave? Yes, she might have. But Kayla's has the nonprofit stuff, but the other half of hers is Spanish, because what she wants to do is work with Hispanics in nonprofit organizations. And so I kind of tell students that the only pies that we make at Slippery in our department are apple pies. But the flavor in your apple pie, like Mary wanted to work with children, so her apple pie had a little bit extra sugar in it, right? But Kayla's pie, she wants to work with people that are Spanish speakers, so hers has a little bit of Chile flavor. But they all are apples. So whatever we put on in your plan has to fit together, because, but it's very tailored to you. And that's what Jocelyn was meaning by, you know, you have to take those 5 or 6 required courses, but then the rest of it is self-designed. And if it's your second major, then we can use things from your liberal studies. We can use things from rock studies. You got to get 120 credits to graduate anyway. You may as well stack those classes so that they give you something other than just one piece of paper, particularly in that Slippery Rock is the only school that will have the nonprofit. So if you do the nonprofit at Slippery Rock and the IMC, there are a lot of marketing majors out there. There are a lot of comm majors and a lot of PR graduates all competing for the same jobs. But if I'm the YMCA and you come to me with a degree in IMC and a degree in nonprofit, that means I don't have to teach you the culture that you're going to be working in. You're going to be able to hit the ground running. And the other thing about our program is that we have a national credential, and that's, we've been talking about this conference. Mary talked about AMI and Jackie talked about Elevate, but our courses in the nonprofit management program put you in the position of being able to to earn a national credential called the Certified Nonprofit Professional. So Mary is Mary Krewduk, CMP. Emily's Emily Palmer, CMP. So those letters behind their names tell a potential employer that they have competencies in the 10 areas in nonprofit management, and they're ready to hit the ground running. And that sort of helps too.
I think something that I want to add to that, Abby, is that if you're thinking about, like you said, like you want to work in nonprofits and things like that. Well, if you want to do things that I do, I would recommend still dual majoring and not just running with nonprofit, only because I wish I would have done that, only because when I do things now, there are so many things that I have had to learn as an employee that I could have learned had I dual majored. So I don't want to, I mean, I took the easy way out. And looking back now, I wish that I would have pushed more to integrate both majors. So I would say that you do need both components.
And even if you only do the nonprofit, you can make that one whole site all your marketing.
Yes.
But, you know, it depends on what your time is like. We also have it structured out so that we try to make it so you don't take like 3 of our classes at once, because it's a pretty heavy load. And so, you know, you could take 1 or 2 a semester. Even if you're a junior, you can still, you know, as long as you have 3 semesters, maybe 4 semesters, you can definitely end up with a second major.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think when I was a sophomore, I decided that I was just going to minor. And then at the end of my sophomore year is when I decided to do the dual major, and I still graduated on time. And I think I did have to double or triple up on classes, maybe like 1 semester, which was awful. Don't recommend that. But you can do it, and it's doable.
We also have had several students that did, like I have a student who majored in political science and nonprofit management. She did an internship and everything, and she graduated in 3.5 years. So, you know, you can move through it pretty quickly, as long as you don't waste credits, you know. And the nice thing I think about having the dual major is that if you're over in IMC, you probably are going to have either Allison Pyrich or Katrina Quinn as your advisor. But when you're on our side, you have me, and so you have 2 advisors. And I work really closely with Allison and Katrina. So it's not like, you know, one gives you competing advice. We really work pretty well together. So I guess I have a question for Mary and Emily. So what's next? So what do you want to do when you grow up more?
Well, I'm going to be the mayor of Mercer. I've already decided I'm going to run for campaign to 2036. So everything from here on out is basically for my mayoral campaign.
You're silly.
And it's funny, but I'm serious. I want to be mayor.
Get it, girl. Do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mercer at one time had the youngest mayor in the country.
Yeah, he was like 19.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Yeah,
would you
so-
like to do next, Mary?
Yeah, for me, I see myself at the ARC for a little bit longer. I've already learned so much there, and I'm still growing there, and there's room to grow for me. But I hope, you know, within the next couple years that I can kind of come back into my role there and become more focused on development and not being pulled so many directions. Kind of want to hone in on that a little bit more.
I have told the executive director at Children's Aid Society multiple times that I will probably die there. That is how passionate I am about the place. So I plan on one day hopefully running it. but that is a long time from now.
I think and just a little bit about the classes. In our intro to nonprofit management class, you actually designed the plan for your own nonprofit organization. And I know, John, you lived through that last summer, right? Or last fall, you designed you did that, right?
What's that?
You did the intro class and you designed your own nonprofit or worked with your church's nonprofit or something, right? In the
No,
intro
actually, the
class?
nonprofit I designed in the intro class was one for AEDs for first responders.
Yeah. And so, you know, that idea of actually designing, having a dream and a passion and something you'd like to see changed, and then getting the tools to help you create that plan, that's pretty empowering. I know, Jackie, you did that in the class too that one summer. Want to talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, it was fun for me. I had to pick something that I was interested in. So once upon a time, I used to be a history major 20 years ago. So I created a museum, and it was just so much fun. And it was very hard to do that over the summer. It was a lot of work. So I'm glad I picked that because that inspired me to keep going through, what were you doing? Bylaws and crazy things that were just, yeah, rough. Everybody knows, everybody's been there. It was fun though. It was fun to see it at the end.
I learned so much in that class. It was unbelievable. As Dr. Delvecchio said, I spent a lot of years working out in the for-profit world, but there was a case where my son had actually had a sudden cardiac arrest and survived, but he should have died based on what the scientists will tell you. But the big thing is getting these AEDs into the hands of people. And it's probably something I will pursue once I'm done with all my courses, is starting up that nonprofit.
Yeah, and most anybody who's been in the program, everybody takes that intro class, and most anybody who's been in the program will tell you they can remember what their nonprofit that they designed was, and they have their binder. I mean,
yeah,
I'm cursed by telling people that they need to have a binder, and I make them do this. I mean, it's really sort of painful, but it's equally painful for me to grade. So if I can handle it, you can handle it, right? But I've had people take I have a student, his name is Kevin, and he graduated in December of 2011. He took his binder and he actually created a nonprofit in our class, the design for the nonprofit. And he then, after a while, went to the Heinz Foundation in Pittsburgh. And Kevin now directs the nonprofit organization that he started in our class. Pretty amazing. So, I've had people take the binder and say, oh yeah, I heard you're hiring. Well, I just want you to see what I can do. And that kind of portfolio. I have a great job watching people go change the world. It's a lot of fun. So we're at about 5:20. Jocelyn and Andrea, anything else you want to mention? And then I have names in this little bowl, and I'll pull one for the gift card.
So I don't have any more questions. Jocelyn, or does anyone else?
I just really wanted to thank the speakers for coming because I liked your input and I really saw myself through you guys, especially Mary. I feel like we're like the same person. I'm in public relations and we're doing IMC. So I just really wanted to thank you guys. But did you have one thing that you wished you did in college to prepare you for working in the nonprofit sector or in public relations or marketing?
Mine would be either that I would have dual majored or that I would have been able to be a full-time member of SNA in college, yes.
Yeah, so for me, I was really blessed with having all of the experiences and opportunities and the time to do all of those things within 4 years. I think for me, I would say spending a little bit more time trying to gain my focus and where I wanted to go, because I did all these things, as part of all these organizations. I did 3 internships, and it was just go, 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 go. But I think if I really would have owned in, like, I would have been able to walk into a career faster from my internship, or kind of just seek out a little more opportunity for myself. So make sure that you stay busy, but also take time to kind of take a step back and figure out really what you're passionate about and what you want to do.
Just a kind of a cheap plug, I think the Empowered to Serve class is helpful for that. Jocelyn, you're in there right now. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we were just talking the other day about how it's so refreshing to take a step back and have a platform to actually look at yourself and have an inward focusing class instead of learning all these different theories and explanations for how things work. And it gives you a place and a time to focus on why you're doing what you're doing. And we were just talking about in fundraising how the why is so important in organizations, but it's also important for you as yourself. So I'm getting a lot out of that class.
I worry because I'm afraid that people think it's a fluff course, Jackie.
It comes off that way in the beginning, but then you're like, holy crap, wait, this is hard. I have to be introspective. What? Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a couple more things, Joss?
You can go to the up next one. Or that. You can go to the up next. So up next is in the Change the World series. The next event is based on faith-based organizations, and that is February 25th during Common Hour. And you can go to the next slide. And I just mainly want to say thank you to Emily and Mary for speaking tonight, and thank you for everyone. Thank you everyone for coming. And on the side, you'll see information about when SNA meets. We meet on the first and third Wednesdays from 7:45 to 9. And follow our social media, please. And you will get updates as to when our next events or our upcoming events will be.
And also this series, there are 1.6 million nonprofits in the United States, and they're everything from the arts to the zoo. And some of those are faith-based organizations. So organizations like Catholic Charities and the Salvation Army, and they're not necessarily, churches are nonprofits also, but I'm not talking about the proselytizing or, the delivering of pastoral services, but nonprofit churches do a lot of social services. In fact, I have one of the students in our office who's doing research and identifying. We've identified 250 churches in Butler County, and she's now sending out a survey to find out what each of those churches do to provide social services in the community. So without those faith-based organizations, our communities would be much less rich than they are. And so this session on the 25th we have a couple of people, one from the Lighthouse Foundation, and I'm not 100% who else sure they have. I think maybe somebody from, I don't really know, but the team that's putting that together. If you know people who are interested in working in a faith-based organization, that might be an interesting event for you to attend. What are the other ones that we have? What are the topics? Do you guys remember? You put the flyer together, Jocelyn. Do you remember what the other ones were?
I looked at the flyer, and I know one was disability focused organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that one. And then after that is the supporting women in LGBTQ+ issues. And then we also have an arts and humanities nonprofit organizations. And the last one is finding a job in the nonprofit sector.
So, yeah. So, spread the word, and, hopefully some other folks will find that this is useful. And if we do, then we know that we're onto something good, and we'll keep doing it. Because like I said, A through Z, and we're only doing 5 this time. We got a whole lot of letters left.